Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to quickly look at how we can set up local hostname resolution. That is, we'll learn about how we can use a file to make contacting other machines, particularly other machines within your network, easier for your users. Now, the discussion here expects that you will have some basic knowledge of networking, that is, you know what an IP address is, you know what a network is, you know about the existence of other machines. If you don't, I do have some other videos on that, or of course, you're on the internet, you have access to a wide variety of resources that can help you with that. The reason we're looking at this is when our machine is communicating with another machine, particularly when our users are running a command to communicate with another machine, most of the time they're going to want to use a host name, not an IP address. This is simply because the human brain, the way it works, it is much better at remembering names and concepts and words than long strings of numbers. So to allow our users to be able to use a host name instead of an IP address, we need to create some sort of association between the other machine's IP address and the name our users will refer to it by. Now, generally, it's not the users who get to pick what they call the other machine. It's the administrator for the network who says this machine is called such and such name. Now, in this video, I'm only going to cover local hostname resolution. That is something we can configure on this machine to decide and control how we will talk to other machines, but there are some drawbacks to this that we're going to see, some limitations. This could absolutely be done by a server centralized in your network or somebody else's network if you're reaching another network to make this task a little bit more robust. But we're really not going to get into details of how to do that here. So for every machine that needs to know about this association between name and address, what we will do is go to this etc hosts file. Every entry, that is every line in this file, is going to represent one IP address, whether that's version 4 or version 6, and a set of host names that correspond to it. For example, the IP address 123.45.67.8 can be reached as either a machine or a machine.adomain.ca. This way, if one of my users wants to SSH to that machine, they don't need to remember SSH 123.45.67.8. They can just SSH a machine or SSH a machine.adomain.ca. When we look at this file, as we will in a second, you'll see that it already has entries for 127.0.0.1 and for ::1. That is the IPv4 and IPv6 loopback addresses. Leave those there. Do not delete them. They are supposed to be there. They stop your machine from bothering other people when somebody tries to talk to the machine they're already on. Oh, yeah, before we get to the limitations, I'll just go into here and I will sudo vi etc hosts. And again, there's already that association set up for the IP version 4 loopback address, the IP version 6 loopback address. If we want to add another association, we can just add another line. In this case, I'm going to set up 192.168.122.1 that I'm going to refer to as gateway and as something else, and whatever other name I want to be able to refer to that machine as. And you could include several different names. Once we've set up that association, we should double check it to make sure it works. And we can do that simply with maybe ping. Now I'm going to do this manually with the IP address so we can see that I can talk to that machine. Sure enough, we are seeing responses, but because I have set up that association, instead of having to remember an IP address, I can refer to it as, now what did I call it? I called it gateway. And now my users don't need to remember 192.168.122.1, they just need to remember gateway, or whatever other name I give this machine. And this will work for any command that would use the IP address. And so, we can SSH, we can email, we can DNS, we can access a web page, whatever command. Now we can take advantage of the way our brains work, that they remember names better than numbers, and refer to this machine by name. Or, if I go back to etc hosts, what were the other names I said? Something else. I could just as easily ping something else, or any one of the names that I set up there. Now, there is a limitation to this. I mentioned there was a limitation earlier. Local hostname resolution is exactly what it says, local. This only affects this one machine. So for a really small network, this is fine. If I only have 5 machines, well, I do need to go to all 5 machines and edit etc hosts on all 5 of them to include those 5 entries. So, maybe I go over to Gateway now, and I go into etc hosts there, and put in the entry that says gateway is this address. And I take my demo machine here, and I put in an entry that says demo is at this address. If this list is small, that's relatively easy to do. But as you get more machines in your network, this gets larger exponentially. For example, if I've got 4 machines, okay, that's 4 files, 4 entries each, 16. If I add a 5th machine, now I have 5 machines, 5 entries each, 25 entries to keep track of. I add a 6th machine into there. Now I got 6 files, 6 entries each, that's 36 entries to keep track of. And if I ever change a name, I have to go to each one of those files and edit the name in each one of those files. So as that gets to a larger and larger network, that becomes more and more of a problem to do. And you'll make typos or forget one of them, even if you're using something like SSH to or SFTP to automatically transfer the file over, guaranteed you will forget one of them at some point. So for a larger network, this just becomes much too difficult to do. Instead, a larger network is going to use an internal DNS server. More likely, actually, several DNS servers for hostname resolution. That way we can keep a table of all of the machines in that network and the association of named IP address in a single central location, and if we have several servers, well, we've got duplicates of that will automatically keep themselves in sync. But that's a topic for a whole nother video. Doing that is much more robust. Once you have it set up, it's much easier to maintain and update, but it is somewhat more complicated to initially set up than just doing this nice, simple local hostname resolution. So, in this video, we've quickly learned how we can manage local hostname resolution using this etc hosts file, making it easier to communicate between the machines under our control. At least until you reach the complexity where it becomes necessary to learn how to run a DNS server. I'll probably make another video on that, and I'll see you there.